The opinions expressed by the host and guests in this show are not necessarily the views of Children's Health Defense.
Good morning, CHD. It's Wednesday, October 22nd, 2025. We are live here at Children's Health Defense on CHD TV. We have a great show for you today. We're going to be speaking to the MEHA, Make Europe Healthy Again, and the MAHA, Tony Lyons, the president, as well. But to start with, we're going to talk to one of my favorite people, Dr. Talley Bowden. There is an article the Defender put out recently. I'm just going to read you the headline of that. It's Texas doctor will appeal medical board's reprimand over attempt to provide ivermectin to COVID patients. This is Dr. Talley Bowden. Good morning and welcome to the show. Thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you for having me, Polly.
It's a huge honor. We, as I said before, we really do adore you. And I think particularly viewers, if you don't know Dr. Talley Bowden, you should follow her on X, which is where I follow her, because what I love about you is you're very outspoken. You're not taking this lying down. You're telling the public what is happening, and you are really truthfully fighting back. And for that, we thank you, because we need more people like you.
Well, thank you. I see vaccine injured in my office every day, so I'm constantly reminded of what happened during the pandemic. And this fight with the medical board is still going. It's been 4 years now. So it's still very much in my face, which is why I continue to speak out so loudly.
And it's a Texas medical board. So can you talk us through, our viewers, what happened to you? Because it was really just because you were trying to help a patient.
I mean, exactly 4 years today. It was October 22nd, 2021. The wife of Jason Jones reached out to me frantic because Texas Hughley Hospital would rather let him die than try ivermectin. So she sued the hospital and she won. And part of that judgment was to grant me emergency temporary privileges. And the hospital was given no discretion in that. They were ordered to give them to me that day. And they refused. They denied my privileges. And there was a bunch of back and forth between the lawyers. And at the final was, I was told by the lawyer, you have the green light. We can send the nurse. We send the nurse. She's greeted by the police in the waiting room of the ICU. She didn't ever enter the waiting room. And she left when she was asked to leave. There was no scene. She recorded the entire thing. It was very calm. But for that, Texas Hughley Hospital reported me to the medical board, and I just decided to fight this. I could have caved. I could have just paid a $5,000 fine, and they wanted me to take 8 hours of continuing medical education and retake the jurisprudence exam. But I am fighting on principle. I'm not the only doctor that has been pursued by the medical board during the pandemic for similar issues. And I had 3 complaints against me, all regarding ivermectin. So I think it's just important to keep fighting this, because we just need to shine light on what is going on with this. It is an abuse of power of the executive branch of Texas.
You're also accused of behaving unprofessionally in a disruptive manner. And the reports coming in from people around you were absolutely not. That never happened.
Well, right. I mean, they claimed that by sending the nurse to the ICU, that could have endangered endangered patients. But we have she recorded the entire thing. It was very calm. She didn't fight. She didn't push her way into the ICU. And, what's lost in this whole fight is the fact that a man's life is hanging on the line. I mean, there's somebody about to die. And all he wants is to try a drug that is now over the counter in Texas, very safe. And, the medical board says, oh, this has nothing to do with ivermectin. But, well, then what is it? What does it have to do with that? He was not allowed to get a second opinion. I mean, at the time, I still had a good reputation, and I've never been sued for malpractice, and I've never been before the board before. So why wouldn't they give me, emergency temporary privileges? And during the pandemic, it was quite common to give same-day privileges to anybody that wanted to help. So if I showed up at that hospital and said, hey, I'm here to help in the ICU, they would have done so. They would have been happy to grant me privileges, but it was all very political and it all revolved around ivermectin.
And the article says that no expert would testify against you. Is that right?
Right. They tried three times to find an expert witness. The state of Texas paid these experts over $30,000 to testify against me, and none of them did it. The first one ended up getting cancer. The second one chickened out. And then the third one, turns out he was working for Planned Parenthood the entire time he was working as a medical director for the Texas Medical Board. So 12 years going, under the radar. And what happened is he submitted his CV as part of, being an expert. And I found it. I actually read the CV. I'm like, oh my goodness. So it went very public. Representative Brian Harrison made it very public. And then he was forced to resign. And then they just gave up. So they had no experts. They had no witnesses from the hospital willing to testify. And then, I'm going to sue them because there was so many violations of due process. I mean, from the start, they were supposed to do a preliminary investigation before putting me through all this. They were supposed to interview people. They never interviewed the nurse that went to the hospital. They didn't interview the patient's wife. They didn't interview the lawyer. They just took the hospital's complaints at face value. And here I am now. It cost me over $250,000, 4 years of my life to fight this. It's, and then at my hearing last week, my lawyers were not allowed into the meeting. So I was talking, thinking my lawyers were there, and I was wondering, why are they so quiet? And then I get off, and they're like, "Oh yeah, did it go?" We weren't even let in. So we are actually requesting a rehearing, and then from there it will go to an appeal.
And so you're not just fighting; you're also, as you just mentioned, filing 2 related lawsuits. Can you talk about those or not?
Yes, the other one. So I'm filing the medical board and individual members of the medical board for violating my due process rights, free and First Amendment rights. But I'm also filing a lawsuit against the Federation of State Medical Boards, along with the Texas Medical Board and the head of the medical board, Dr. Sharif Zafran, for First Amendment issues. So during the pandemic, and it was in July of 2021. The Federation of State Medical Boards, which is a private entity, it's a nonprofit that somehow has this stranglehold over all the state medical boards. So it's like the hub. And they sent out a directive to every single medical board in the country to go after doctors who are spreading misinformation for COVID. And so we all got hit at the same time. It was all in the fall of 2021. It was no accident. And so I'm joining a lawsuit with 3 other doctors who were impacted by this. And we should be filing by the end of the month. So I'm excited about that.
I'm so just proud of you and grateful to you for doing this. So what does it cost you personally? You've talked about the $250,000. I do hope people are helping fund that for you. But what else does it cost you? Because this is a huge thing, this fight. And I notice you're really attacked badly.
Well, yeah, I mean, the tax, that doesn't, it's like water off a back at this point. But yeah, it's just, it hangs over your head. It's a cloud of stress. There's a mark on my record until it's all cleared up. If I apply for privileges anywhere, I have to report it. So it's just, but it's important to fight this. Because like everything with the pandemic, everything's getting swept under the rug. And if we don't fight it, then it's just going to happen again.
So I just want to ask you this one question. So we traveled around on a bus thinking we were going to get lots of COVID vaccine injuries and death, which we did. But what really shocked us was what went on in the hospitals that were being reported by the people as we traveled around. So much death from people going into hospital, getting put on remdesivir, all that kind of stuff. And not much is being done about that. And for sure it happened because we've heard it over and over again. Yet you are being taken through the ringer just because you try to help someone with a little bit of ivermectin. Something's really wrong about all of this.
It is. And one way I want to change it is create some sort of legislation where patients are permitted to get a second opinion from a doctor that does not have privileges at the hospital. So if you end up in the hospital with a heart attack and you have a cardiologist, but that cardiologist doesn't have privileges at the hospital, you are cut off from that cardiologist. Even though that doctor knows you best, you have a relationship with that doctor, it's somebody you trust, you're going to get treated by complete strangers. So I want to change that so that hospitals are required to give doctors emergency temporary privileges for situations like that. Because if you are safe enough to be licensed in the state of Texas, you should be safe enough to practice in any hospital in the state of Texas. This privileges, this credentialing process, it's just a power grab from hospitals, and it's completely unnecessary.
But Dr. Bowden, the problem we've got right now is that our viewers, our people in our movement are afraid to go to hospital for anything after what they saw during COVID. Even people are afraid to give birth in a hospital when some people obviously have to. So how can we correct that? How can we make this better? Because even with the measles, we're seeing now there's a measles protocol death, we have the COVID protocol death. It's becoming a frightening place to go, and that's not okay.
Well, that's why I think, being able to bring your own doctor in, finding a doctor you trust outside of the system, and then being able to bring that doctor into the hospital with you is sort of the most expeditious way to solve this problem. The other thing is having all your documents in line. There's a website called protocolkills.com, and it sprung out of all these hospital issues during the pandemic. It gives you great ways to get prepared in case God forbid, you ever have to go to the hospital. You have everything in order, and then making sure you have an advocate in the hospital. I mean, that was the problem during the pandemic, because people were just shut off. They were cut off from their loved ones, and so they were at the mercy of the hospital. And if you're sick, you know how hard it is to advocate for yourself. So making sure that you have somebody that can be there to advocate for you.
And you mentioned earlier in this interview that you see a lot of people that are injured. Do you mean, because you're an ear, nose, and throat specialist, ENT doctor, correct? Which is where all of us parents have autistic children from vaccines are sent. We're sent to you, and then we have the tubes in the ears, and we all have the same story. So are you seeing what we're seeing out there? Are you seeing this huge rise in autism?
No, I will say, but yeah, I'm a quiet practice, solo physician. I don't take insurance. So I don't, it's lower volume. And I do see a lot of people, because of the podcasts I've been on, I have a lot of people coming to me with injuries from the COVID shots. So I see that daily. I mean, it's at least one patient every day. It comes in to see me, and new patients, unfortunately, 4 years later, whose lives have been completely destroyed by these shots. I mean, I had a 40-year-old man in my office crying a couple of days ago because of what these shots have done to his health. So I totally see, I believe the rise. And I mean, we all know people. I mean, that's the thing is, 20 years ago, I didn't know anybody who had autism or anybody with a child with autism, but now, I know several people. So I totally think that the autism epidemic is something that really needs to be addressed.
And finally, Dr. Bowden, I'm going to talk about your book. You wrote a book, correct?
Correct. Dangerous misinformation, the virus, the treatment, and the lies. It's basically a memoir of what's been going on the past 5 years, just the battle I've been going through.
And how can people get that book?
Well, it doesn't come out till April, but it is on Amazon now for pre-order.
Oh, okay. So it's not out yet. All right. How exciting. And people can follow you on X. Where else can they follow you?
I have a Substack. I also have an organization called Americans for Health Freedom. And the foundational project is to get politicians to simply state that the COVID shot should be pulled off the market. Marjorie Taylor Greene has signed, Thomas Massie, Senator Ron Johnson, Joseph Ladapo. But we have state representatives, we have city council members, we have precinct chairs. So anybody that is in the political arena can sign this pledge, and we just need to keep the momentum going. Because courage is contagious, and the more people we have speaking out, the better.
Yeah, and just to remind our viewers, you do want to follow her, particularly on X, if you're on X, because she updates us as things are happening in a very honest way, which I truly appreciate. Will you come back on and keep us updated on all that you're doing? We really want to follow you and support you. We'll be praying for you and right there with you. Anything we can do to help, because what's happened to you is disgusting, quite frankly.
Well, thank you, Polly. Thanks for having me and spreading the word.
Thank you, Dr. Bowden. It's lovely to have you on. All right, everybody. Well, you know where to follow this particularly amazing doctor. And trust me, you do want to be doing that because she needs our support. But now we're going to go to the president of MAHA, Tony Lyons. Good morning, Tony.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for being on. Well, we want to catch up with you because we want to know, a lot of people have been asking us questions. What is going on with MAHA? There's lots of disinformation and all kinds of stuff going on there. So we thought, well, why don't we just get them on and have you talk us through what's happening?
Sure. I'd like to start off by saying that I think Mary's really right, that courage is contagious. And that's such an important point, that what we really need is cultural change, and that there's only so much that the government can do to control corporations. But the real control comes from people changing their minds, changing their views. And that's what we're seeing in really big numbers. Even when when you look at something like the percentage of people in the country who trust the early childhood vaccine schedule. So I just looked at a poll that said something like 35% just think that it really needs to be rethought, reworked, that they just don't trust the science that's been done there, or the lack of science. And then there's another 23% who are kind of on the fence. So that's a massive cultural change. For the whole population of the country, it's something like 100 million people changing their mind on something that's really important in a one-year period. So, that's just such an important point, that the MAHA movement, the ideas that CHD stands for, that MAHA stands for, that people like Mary stand for, are really taking over the country and winning in the marketplace of ideas. So that, I think, is just a critical change that's happening, that's totally separate from the incredible, bold action that's being taken, at the government level.
So what exactly does MAHA action do? What do you do? Because I think there's a lot of confusion. Do you work with Robert F. Kennedy Jr.? Are you completely separate from it? I think that, can we clear that up?
Yeah, we're completely separate. So we do a whole bunch of things, but one of the main things is to sort of tell the true story about what Secretary Kennedy and his whole team are doing. And so if you read the New York Times, you see day after day that he's dangerous, that he's a threat, that people are, going to become more sick. And we want to tell the story, which is, I believe, the true story, which is that the people who we trusted in the past failed the American people, and they failed just at a colossal level. And that, 76% by one poll of the people in this country suffer from a chronic disease. So all the things that we really should be afraid of, they've already happened. And we want to tell the story and get the message out using hundreds and hundreds of influencers, paid advertisements, any way we can get the story out, that the world really is getting better, and that the things that people should care about really are changing. And we've looked at some of the numbers in the last couple of weeks. There was one poll that said that 95% of parents in the country want healthier lunches for their kids at school. 93% want really tough rules on conflicts of interest for government officials. 35%, like I said, don't trust, the vaccine schedule. So there's just massive change happening, and we want to make sure that everybody sees what's happening.
Yeah, well, Tony, we have a slightly bigger problem though. I mean, I think it's wonderful, but we're hearing from viewers that don't even want to send their children to school anymore because the way the schools are right now, it's massive homeschooling starting up. Our movement is definitely getting bigger. And one of the things that I'm noticing is MAHA is getting a lot of the young people in, which is something we as the Children's Health Defence have been wanting to get to for a long time. Get them before they have babies, educate them. And there's a lot of young MAHA mums out there. It's wonderful to see.
Yeah, it's kind of fascinating how incredibly powerful it's been with parents and with children. That, when you think of us winning something, part of the way that you win is to change the dialogue and to change the level of discourse that's possible. So, 1 year ago, I don't think anybody in the country was talking about metabolic health or beef tallow or seed oils or processed foods or petroleum-based food dyes. That was really just not part of the conversation. So we have just this massive change. And I think you're right. People don't trust the government and they shouldn't trust it. So this is a period where, where the New York Times tells you that there's this crisis of trust because of Secretary Kennedy. And I view it, and I think, we all in this movement view it as this is a time where we have to rebuild trust, regain trust by doing things that warrant trust, by having radical transparency, by having studies that anybody can go online and look at. And, you see people like Aaron Siri saying there really haven't been any studies where the government has told us these are the most studied, that vaccines, for example, are the most studied products on Earth. So there's this cognitive dissonance that's really come to the fore, and people want that transparency, and they're starting to get it, and they're not going to stop. This is a point where people, regardless of who's in power, have changed their mindset, and they want to look at food labels, they want to look at package inserts, they want to know what drugs their children are taking, and really do better, really start to do better for their families.
So, Tony, some people, quite a lot of people, feel that Bobby's not doing enough, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is not doing enough, fast enough. Like they want the vaccines, people to know that these vaccines can kill. They want their food, as you say, the dye and the bioengineered products, which is on every single label. If you look at these foods, then he's not doing enough. So, can you explain how he can't just take it all away in 1 second?
Sure. And, that's a great point. And, the MAHA movement was really built on the incredible work over many, many years of thousands and thousands of activists all around the country. And these are people, all of us, and I'm one of them, who are used to disagreeing, used to really wanting to hold people's feet to the fire and challenge anybody, challenge even people who we love, like Secretary Kennedy. So we're allowed to do that. That's what should be different now. And that's what's really starting to be different, that we can disagree. We can love Bobby Kennedy, but disagree with him on some specific thing, or say, why isn't he moving faster? We can disagree on the strategy, on the policy, on the studies, on the priorities, on the speed. But that's something different than disagreeing on the opportunity. So I think that that's what we're all on the same page for, that this is a point in history where things are possible, where real change is possible. And some days it's going to seem like the change is just incredibly fast. And that, like I said, the polling numbers where millions of Americans are changing their minds, where they're getting access to information that makes it possible for them to view things more clearly, that's incredible progress. Governments often work slowly, move slowly. But I think that there's been more progress made with Secretary Kennedy in power than in the last, 2 generations, that you haven't seen a Secretary of Health and Human Services who has done this much in this short a time. And there's going to be clearly just so much more done.
No, but I completely agree with you. And to see Trump and Kennedy standing up there saying that basically the MMR is terrible was just for me completely thank you. I've been saying that for years. So if I wanted to be a MAHA, I guess, granny, a MAHA granny, how do I do it? How do I get involved?
Yeah, so one of the ways is to go to our website, which is mahaaction.com. We are also on Substack with the MAHA report. We have a tracker of all of the laws in all the cities and all the states in the country for what they're doing to make their state more MAHA, more open, more transparent, more healthy, more based on gold standard science. So I would definitely encourage people state by state to look at what their state's doing, to contact their state senators, their governors, and really push for changes. And, you know, we all know what those changes ought to be. We want healthier foods. We want better transparency for drugs. We want better rules. When it comes to vaccines, what we want is total choice, total medical freedom. But all of these kinds of changes can happen because people change and because people demand change of their politicians at the local level, at the state level, at the federal level. And like I said, I think it's happening, but I think that everybody should help us amplify the victories that are happening, but still be really free to challenge anything, to question anything, because that's how progress is really going to come.
Tony, my personal plea to MAHA, to Secretary Kennedy, is please, can we stop these pediatricians being paid or getting bonuses to vaccinate our children? And I always had medical freedom, but what I didn't have was informed consent. Nobody told me my child could have a seizure. So those are the two things I want. I want truth to the parent, and I want these doctors, pediatricians, they should not be getting paid.
Yeah, I would say that the better way to do it is to recognize that over-vaccinating, over-medicating, feeding people unhealthy food has caused this chronic disease epidemic, and that we need incentives to go the other way. So we need doctors to have an incentive to give fewer drugs, fewer vaccines, better information on health and nutrition. That's what's going to really help. And it is really crazy, like you said, that pediatricians have been paid to give people more drugs, more vaccines, and to focus on medicating people rather than promoting public health.
Well, the conversation will continue because you will be at the big conference that we have here in Austin in not that many days.
Yes. Seems like it's going to be a really great event. Hope that anybody who hasn't signed up goes and signs up now.
It's sold out. We're sold out. We do not have any tickets left. We are completely sold out, but you can watch it online. So if you see Tony walking around the hotel or where this conference is, give him a big hug, everybody.
Thanks
Tony,
so much.
Thank you so much for being in, for all the work you do. And looking forward to seeing you not too long.
You too.
All right, everyone, we're going to go from MAHA to MEHA. What's MEHA? Make Europe healthy again. Welcome to the show. We have two brilliant doctors with us on the show today. Good morning. Put my glass on.
Good morning.
Maria Humber-Mogg and Andrea Nazarenko. If I say that, I probably did not say that right, but welcome.
Thank you for having us here. It's a joy to be on.
So now tell us all about MEHA. It's fantastic that you're doing this. It's great. Whose idea was it? Who came up with it first? Who inspired you?
I know, Maria, do you want to jump in? Because Maria had this beautiful vision. Maria is my Austrian friend. I'm not sure if her audio is working right at this moment. She is my Austrian friend who is like my sister, and she had a beautiful vision to inspired by this global movement to promote health. We have both been in this movement for a very long time, pre-COVID, and as many people have been amplified by the energy that has taken place since COVID happened, and really hasn't stopped. And in fact, the momentum has just continued to build. And one of the beautiful things about Europe, which we don't acknowledge enough, is how beautiful all of the different nations and the cultural heritages across the nations, the strength and the protection that offers. And with this massive globalist movement that's happening to erase our individual differences, erase these cultural differences, we recognize that by tapping into this, by tapping into the knowledge and the wisdom and the ancient traditions that we have this beautiful opportunity to not only make Europe great, healthy again, but to spread that knowledge and that wisdom and those pieces of information that has lived within these cultural traditions across the world, and truly spread the message of what it takes to be healthy, from a place of the remembrance of what a healthy and happy society looks like. And so it's really a beautiful mission rooted in human dignity, in community safety, in peace, in sovereignty, and love, because we truly recognize that health is not just ending chronic disease. That's an important part, and I do not dismiss that. That is one of our most proximal outcomes. But ultimately, when we talk about health, we're talking about health in mind, body, soul, and society. And so we are capturing the vitality of the human existence. We are holding on to what it means to be human, what it means to have a humanity-centered society, and teaching our children that love prevails over anything and truth is part of love. So when we talk about health, we are talking about correcting our societal systems, correcting the fabrics of society, meaning the foundations: clean water, clean air, clean food, clean space, and safe, peaceful communities so our children can thrive, not just fight, not just resist. Those are just mechanisms to help us get there. But what we truly want is a pan-European continent and our residents to go across the globe about what it means to be content with our differences, because it is our disunity that is our strength, and it is the thing that makes us healthy.
So how has it been received over there in Europe? Because, I mean, like I told you before we went on, I did go over there once and we weren't received very well at all. It was with Andy Wakefield, so it could have been that. But I want to know how it's been received, because I know the people were behind it. Are you being attacked?
Maria, is your audio working? So it is being received with open arms. I mean, we just did our launch in the EU Parliament, and we filled more seats. I don't know if there were any seats left, to be honest with you. We had the room filled with parliamentarians, with leaders of political parties, and experts from all over. I mean, there was a point where we had to start turning people down because there was more. I mean, each day, Maria and I wake up to more and more experts, families, citizens, politicians reaching out to us, interested in joining this movement. The momentum that has been built, not just by us. I mean, there is no one savior to this issue, that the situation that we have gotten ourselves in globally. But the beauty of it is that every small win that happens wherever it is in the world, from the local boards, a local school board in some rural town in America, that small win resonates across the world to the EU Parliament in Brussels. We are so connected, and our fight is connected. And so what we are doing in Europe is part of this broader process, and all of the momentum we're building. I mean, listen, we are a train that has left the station at this point, and we're so grateful to you all at CHD for being that voice years ago when the momentum wasn't there, when the EU Parliament did walk out. And it's because of all of that fight and that perseverance that we're able to walk in there today and get the attention, the resonance. And not only that, people are owning it. These are folks who are saying, hey, we want to make Europe healthy again. We want this. This is ours. And that is the most beautiful thing anyone could ask for, because at this point in time, health has become it has become something that everybody wants to fight for. And I don't think that is a win that we could ever take for granted. It doesn't mean that the fight is not uphill. We have a lot of institutional barriers that we need to face in Europe. There's a lot of contextual factors that are different from America, and a lot that are similar. So, for example, the EMA, which would be the institution that's analogous to our FDA here, is significantly bought by pharmaceutical companies, and there's all of written conflicts of interest, and the nuances of the details of the political system and the corporate capture and corruption that are happening they're all different. Everything is contextually embedded, and it's what makes the complexity of Europe is what makes it fun, because you have so many different players and so many different systems. But at its core, the issues that we're facing in MEHA are very similar to the issues that are being faced in MAHA and by organizations like CHD. And that is that we have these unelected bureaucrats and government officials who are bought by corporations that have profit over people, and they are taking hold of our health systems and our societal systems. It's extending beyond just our health system to our financial systems, to our digital IDs, digital IDs. All of this stuff is building upon each other. And until the people take it back and say, no, we demand our elected officials represent the people, and we recognize that political systems are only one strategy as a mechanism of change, but rather we can also tap into all of these other mechanisms of change, like Tony said, by wakening up the people and recognizing the importance of a single mom's voice. These are the ways that we change society. We cannot wait. MEHA is completely 100% unaffiliated with any political party or political strategy. It is a core foundation of what we do and how we function. We are apolitical, but we use the political systems, like being in the EU Parliament, as a tool and a strategy to help us get where we need to go. Because we know that social change in general, whether you're talking about health or any other system, health governance could either be top down, where we see our political systems and our politicians passing laws, passing policies, and in the sad case of the pandemic, passing mandates that impact the people. But change could also happen from the bottom up. And we know from the history of the science of social change that the bottom up strategies are 10 times more impactful. We also know that they are more sustainable, meaning they last longer, because a top-down strategy, look what happened with the pandemic, people started to refuse. There is a limit that top-down can have. Top-down strategies only work to the extent to which the people listen. And when the people rescind their consent to the laws that are passed upon us, they no longer have any power. So ultimately, when you take a movement like MEHA, like MAHA, what we want to do is we want to help empower the people, create the conditions for change where the people say we are in control of our health, we are in control of the future. And when we do that, there is no globalist organization or individual that could have any effect on our health, because the people holds the power and have held the power all along.
Well, thank you, Andrew. You speak very well on behalf of MEHA. Dr. Maria, is your audio working now?
Yes, I do think my audio works now. Good afternoon from Austria. First and foremost, I'm not only a doctor, I'm a mom. So I brought my boy to a children's birthday party this afternoon, and I am here in the middle of a shopping mall. So if you have background noise, that's just, authentic and a mom's life, right? So thank you, Andrea, my dear friend and sister, for pointing out what MEHA, Make Europe Healthy Again, stands for. And to answer your question, Polly, from the beginning, yes, I somehow had the idea, but that came from being at the Rescue the Republic rally. And I talked to Del Bigtree at that night, and he told me how and when Robert F. Kennedy Jr. came up with the idea to call it MAHA, Make America Healthy Again. And I always was a big fan of shortening words or having short descriptions like MAHA, or like my social media, you will find me as Mahumo. And that's not only Maria Humber-Mogg, it will always stand for years now for Make Humans More Aware, More Conscious, More Empowered. And so I love the idea to have short words, and that stands for so much more, as Andrea pointed out. And I want to thank you, Children's Health Defense TV, because I was following you for years. I was already following Del Bigtree and the High Wire, and I actually have to say his show made me brave. I somehow ended up organizing big rallies here in Austria where we had draconian measures going on. And actually, whatever I heard on the High Wire, I actually brought to the rally stages on the weekends, 2 days later. So it's a big global movement that we are in, and I love to be connected with amazing souls throughout the planet. I want to thank Sayar Chi, from Global Wellness Forum, Tony Lyons, and I'm very proud that also these folks like Mary Holland said they want to be part of our steering committee of Make Europe Healthy Again, because I know we can have a big impact, especially as Andrea pointed out, if politicians reach out to us, if we reach out to them, and we can really help and bring our solutions, and that's what Europe needs right now.
Oh, it sounds wonderful. Now, I have a question for you both. When we talk about Make America or Make Europe Healthy Again, there's a lot of talk about food, and absolutely we want to, but it's also a safe thing to talk about food. Are you going to be brave and talk about the vaccine injury and what is going on? Because this has to stop. And I'm
100%.
And I see, I've traveled a lot of England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and Europe, and I can tell you the same stories are happening there as they are happening here. And these babies are dying, and we have to stop it. So are you going to really go out there and fight that for us?
Absolutely. And if you watch our launch, which you can find on gomeha.com, we have had some Hungarian lawyers who, right at our launch, present the issue of the vaccine issue. What's happening in Hungary is pretty draconian when it comes to the vaccine schedules and vaccine mandates. And so we, as politically affiliated, we are not pushing any political agenda. We are not tied to any politician, which gives us the freedom to talk the truth. And it gives us the freedom to not follow an ideological perspective, but instead speak what it takes to make Europe healthy again. And you cannot speak about health without speaking about vaccines. And so most definitely we will be speaking about the vaccine issue, as well as the issue of how the systems the systems and the corporate capture that led to inefficient scientific testing of drugs that are on the market, and getting to the root causes of this problem, because the vaccines are a major problem that need to be discussed. The way vaccines are introduced via mandates are a major problem that needs to be discussed. But the scientific integrity underlying all of this, and the conflict of interest and the corporate capture by psychopathic corporations that have profit to gain, is really the ultimate cause that we need to clean up. And in fact, one of the legislative priorities that we asked the EU Parliament to take hold of is informed consent, as you mentioned to Tony before, Polly, as well as the second one being not allowing drug companies to do their own safety and efficacy trials, but requiring third-party testing by independent research institutions so we don't get biased data and lies through the scientific process.
And also, we would have had a great friend from the US speaking in the parliament on behalf of her autistic son, who is a speller. And our friend was unfortunately not able to be with us because her son needed her. So she already had booked the flight to come over, and we would have given her a voice for her boy already at this MEHA launch event. But we will definitely have meetings to follow up, and definitely we will tackle the vaccine injury story. And also at the end of my speech, I mentioned to the auditorium and to the people in the live stream that they should definitely watch an inconvenience study.
So what's the overall vision, and how can people get involved?
The overall vision... Go ahead, Maria.
So the next steps are definitely that we have amazing doctors like Professor Dr. Christian Perron and Dr. Louis Fouché. They will be the first, next step sister organization, which will be Make France Healthy Again. We are already working on Make Greece Healthy Again with one of the defender authors, Michael Nevradakis. So he is on board with that as well. So that's the next steps. And we are definitely not the organization who is telling Italian doctors what to do, but we want to sit down with them and say, tell us more about your medical system, what's going on in your countries. Let's present the data from the scientists that we are also well connected with throughout the world, so you can bring the influence to your parliamentarians in your Italian parliament, in your Hungarian parliament, etc. So the next steps are definitely a lot of work with meetings in the upcoming days and weeks to have our partners in the countries, and we definitely want to work close with all the work that has already been done through organizations like yours, so we don't have to reinvent the bike. And the data is here. We just need to share and tell the data to the people in the right positions, and also policymakers.
Well, God, that's amazing work that you're doing. Sorry, Andrea, did you want to say something?
I was just going to say briefly, MEHA is developing an infrastructure. We are not duplicating the efforts of all of the amazing doctors, lawyers, and organizations out there. We provide support to build the capacities and readiness of all of these groups to connect together and create an infrastructure so we could take what we're already doing to the next level, as well as synthesizing and translating information to make it accessible to people from various nations, as well as different understandings and readiness and engagement in the process. So we encourage folks to follow us on X at GoMeha.com, as well as our webpage, which is GoMeha.com. And it doesn't matter if you're American, Australian, or European, please join the effort, because we truly are a global community making the world healthy together.
At some point, we have to sort England out, but I don't know that's for another.
England.
All right. Listen, anything we can do at Children's Health Defence to help you, our viewers, our people, we are one big family, and I love that we're uniting across the pond as well now. That's fantastic. So yeah, anything at all, just let us know. You're always welcome on CHD TV to let us know, keep us updated on what you're doing. So thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, everyone. Well, in a minute, we're going to go to a story. But first of all, I just want to tell you that we are looking for birth stories of any kind. Isabella Yon on Mothers to Be is going to start to account these birth stories. We've got to highlight the bad things that go on in the hospitals, and we've got to talk about the good births, the bad births, whatever it is. But we are really going to go heavy in on birth stories. So do be brave and contact us at stories@chd.tv, and Bella will set up. You don't have to go live. If you're frightened of going live, she can pre-record with you. But we really want to start getting as many birth stories as we can. We have to highlight what's going on when people are trying to have a healthy birth without intervention. So and also all your stories. You know that we always want your injury stories or unvaccinated stories. So do contact us for all of those. But for right now, our big thing is birth stories. We're going to go to our stories of the day. So pray big, my friends. Stand firm. Never settle. And I'll see you tomorrow on Financial Rebellion. Okay, we are live. So first of all, if you could tell us your name.
Michelle Tyler.
And you survived the hospital protocol. This is amazing. We're so pleased you're sitting here with us.
I'm very blessed to be sitting here.
So first question, did you take the COVID-19 shot?
I did not.
Why did you not?
It was emergency use authorized. So it was still experimental. I had already was kind of becoming leery of shots after reading about the Gardasil HPV fiasco. So I was leery already, and then when I saw how hard they were trying to bribe people, rewarding people, the messaging, all the push, something was wrong with that. They've never done that for any other medical treatment drug, so didn't feel right about it.
All right, but you did end up in hospital, so...
I did.
So did you have one of those pulse
oximeter, yeah.
On your finger, yeah.
Yeah.
So is that what made you go in? Did it drop?
No, I didn't want to go to the hospital. We actually got COVID from our vaccinated family. We went to their place for Thanksgiving, and before we went, they called and said, "Oh, somebody here has COVID," but we weren't worried about it because we had ivermectin for my husband if he got it, and I'd been taking hydroxychloroquine prophylactically once a week before that, so it's not going to affect us. But it did. Our whole family, husband and I, 2 kids, came down with it. Kids got over it very quickly, sick for like a day. Husband got pretty sick, but his oxygen never dropped. After I'd been, about 8 days after I'd tested positive, my oxygen started to drop, and I did not want to go to the hospital. I only went at the strong, it took a lot of convincing from my husband, his mom, and my direct primary care physician to go. I didn't want to go because I knew what would happen. So.
And it did.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I guess not entirely.
No.
I figured I wouldn't survive it.
The trauma. So you went in, and what happened when you? Because this is the bit that we have. It's sketchy for everybody else because the speaking on behalf of their loved ones. So this is important that we hear from you of what happened when you went into hospital.
Well, so we went to the emergency room. My husband drove me there. They did their intake. They tested my oxygen there, with the finger oximeter, and it was 84% at that time. When they took me back into the ER, my husband couldn't come in, so that was the last I saw him for quite a long time.
Did they ask if you were unvaccinated?
Oh yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, once I can't remember if they asked me in the intake area, but once I was back in the actual ER, I was asked that by the doctor, and I could tell he wasn't very impressed that I wasn't. So, they brought in, they did their x-ray, and they brought in these consent forms for the remdesivir and for the baricitinib, and because those were both EUA medications. I'd done a lot of reading about remdesivir, and I didn't want to take that. I'd never heard of baricitinib. So, and at that point, I didn't know this until later, but at that point, the remdesivir couldn't have done me any good at all because I was too far in. But when the doctor wanted me to take the remdesivir, I told him I didn't want to, that I hadn't read good things about it. And he asked what I'd read about it, and I said, well, it causes liver and kidney failure. And he told me, oh, well, we'll test your liver and kidney function daily, and you can stop it at any time. And this point, I've been sick with a fever for a week. I'm not feeling very good, and okay, they'll test daily. I can stop at any time. I stupidly agreed to it. And I agreed to the baricitinib because I didn't know anything about it. Come to find out later, it causes infections. After I got out of the hospital and was reading about it. So they gave me, the first day they give you 2 doses of remdesivir, and then a day thereafter, or a dose thereafter, for usually 5 days. But after the second day of it, so 3 doses, I wasn't feeling good at all. I wasn't feeling good anyway. I'd had, kind of diarrhea before I went to the hospital, and then it got worse. And I was just really feeling sick from it. And I told the doctor after that second day, I didn't want any more. And to their credit, they actually discontinued it. So at least it doesn't show up on my bill anymore after that point. So I don't think I got any more. I don't think I'd be here if I'd gotten more. So.
How did you get out?
There's a lot that went on before I got out. Let's see. On my 5th day in the hospital, in the morning, I was texting my husband, telling him, I don't think I'm gonna survive. I don't think I'm gonna make it. And and telling him, maybe I've done everything God had for me, had planned for me to do. So I wasn't doing well. And then, but each day, and I did ask the doctor about Ivermectin, and he told me, when I discontinued the remdesivir, no, it doesn't work. That's what he told me. So that wasn't an option. But anyway, that 5th day, that night, your oxygen levels naturally drop when you're sleeping. And of course, they have it on an alarm. If it gets down to 89%, this alarm goes off. Well, anyway, my oxygen wasn't staying above 89%. And normally drops when you sleep. Yeah. So I'm sound asleep. All of a sudden, around midnight, I'm woken up. All these people rushing into my room. They've called their rapid action team because my oxygen levels aren't staying high enough. And so they tell me, okay, we're gonna have to put you on a BiPAP. I'd been on the high flow nasal cannula up to this point. And so, I'm confused because I've been asleep. They put this BiPAP on me, which if I recall, it wasn't comfortable at all. It's like sucking and blowing your face. And they, after about 15 minutes of that, declared that I'd failed the BiPAP, and that I needed to be intubated. And of course, I didn't want to be intubated. So they take me up to some other small room, procedure room, and it's a nurse practitioner in charge that night. And I don't want to be intubated. I don't want this. And she tells me, or no, I tell her I don't want this because, most people don't survive it. And, well, what have you heard? I said, well, 80 to 90% of people don't come out alive. And she tells me, well, in this hospital, it's more like 50-50, which wasn't a great consolation. But at this point, I'm worn out. I just kind of lost the will to fight, but I have to talk to my husband first. So try calling on the cell phone. He doesn't answer. He's asleep. He doesn't hear the phone. It takes several hours to get a hold of him. So it's about 5 a.m. before he wakes up to the call and answers. So basically, I don't remember what he said, what we said at all. This was Christmas, it was getting close to Christmas time. It's December 17th I was intubated. So I think I was probably telling him, okay, the Christmas gifts are hidden here. And I had this numbering system because I didn't label the gifts with the kids' names because I didn't want them figuring out whose was whose and shaking them. So, okay, this number belongs to, and so trying to make sure that, because I figured I was a goner. And so, and I was very scared. Extremely frightened. I remember when they were getting ready to put me under, a nurse telling me that I could hold her hand, and that meant a lot to me. Complete stranger, and I wanted to hold her hand, but she was willing to offer that. So, and that's the last thing I remember for a very, very long time. After I'd been in a medically induced coma for getting close to a couple weeks. They tell my husband that, after a couple weeks of intubation, infection's pretty likely. I'd already experienced, looking at my medical records, it looks like the day after I was intubated, I was in sepsis. But, so after a couple weeks, the doctor is talking to my husband, and my husband apparently is telling the doctor, I want to give her as much time as she needs. I know they did brain scans. Thank God they must have seen some activity because they didn't convince my husband to pull the plug. But they told him, having the tube down their throat can introduce infections. So at this point, we like to do a tracheostomy. Okay, husband's agreeable to that. Then they tell him, we won't do the tracheostomy unless you sign a DNR. So my husband has to think pretty hard about that. They tell him that, if she were to code, that, we would end up breaking her ribs, trying to bring her back. She'd be a vegetable. And so he thinks about this for a few days, and after a few days, finally he decides to sign the DNR so that they'll do the tracheostomy, which they did on January 3rd. At some point after that, they decide to start trying to wean me from ventilation or from sedation, which they had a difficult time doing. And of course I'm having all the hallucinations during, and I know looking at the doctor's notes, you see stuff about occasionally I would nod or open my eyes to a voice, and I don't know, I'm in la la land. A couple after, let's see, I was required to be in isolation for 19 days after that point. So probably around the time I was they did the tracheostomy, my husband was allowed to come see me. And he and my older child, they would come see me almost every day. Extremely thankful they did. And also that I'd have a couple friends sent balloons and flowers to the hospital. And I was very thankful for that. The hospital knew that there were people who cared about this person, who would care if she didn't make it. So I think that made a difference. But yeah, in the chart, there's stuff about, husband showed up today and she smiled. I'm in La La Land. I have no idea what's going on. Eventually, they do manage to wean me off the sedation, and I can't move. Your muscles decondition. I was the amount of time that I was on the ventilator was 35 days, and I spent a total of I think it was 56 days, basically 2 months in the hospital. And when I woke up, I couldn't move a muscle. I couldn't lift my arms. My hand had been taped to try to keep the IV on, but it had my fingers in a weird position. So when they did try to, of course I can't talk, so they tried to give me a marker and a whiteboard to write, but I can't, my hands has been in this position for 2 months or a month, so I can't write even. And I'm trying to, trying to force everyone to read my lips, which doesn't work very well. It was very frustrating not being able to communicate. Had to learn how to walk all over again. That was yeah, it was hard.
I just wonder why you were allowed to live and not all these other people, because they have a similar story, but the staff are much more forceful.
It's interesting. I don't have much good to say about the doctors in the hospital, but I had some really wonderful nurses. I think a huge difference. There were a lot of people praying for me. There were even people I didn't even know praying for me. This really taught me about the power of prayer. But yeah, I think I had some really wonderful nurses that, I remember one nurse, once I was awake, she spent hours one night looking for a waffle mattress for me. She didn't have to do that. So I had, one nurse who... You
had some good nurses.
I did. I was really blessed in that way. So, yeah.
And how wonderful that you're sitting here now telling this story.
Yeah, I feel very blessed. I homeschool my son, and my big fear, oh no, if I die, he's going to be stuck back in the public school system, which was like the last thing I wanted. And so yeah, I'm very glad that for my family that I survived. That my husband didn't have to become single dad. It was hard enough that 2 months. So yeah, I'm very happy that I still get to be here for them.
Now, what about today? So do you still have to be on oxygen? How has this affected you today?
When I came home from the hospital, I was on oxygen around the clock, and slowly I've been able to reduce it. Around the house, I don't use oxygen at all. I've even gotten to where I can do chores, around the house without it. But if I'm walking very far, I'll desat. Or if I even take it I take it with me whenever I leave the house. My husband accuses me of it being like a security blanket, but I never know. Like if a vehicle breaks down and I'm gonna have to walk, I've had that happen. So I keep it with me whenever I leave. And if I'm going to be walking very far or doing something that's going to require some real exertion, I do still use it.
Is there anything else you want to add to this story?
I see a lot on social media, a lot of the the feelings that the people who have lost loved ones have gone, are dealing with, and the ones who have been injured by the shots, what they're dealing with, and just this whole thing that's been perpetrated on us. And I take comfort in knowing that God sees every detail. He knows everything that's happened, everything that's been done, and He's in control, and He will serve final justice. I hope people see justice for their loved ones in this lifetime, but even if they don't, God will serve ultimate justice in the end. And not one life, every life matters to Him.
So, thank you so much for being so brave and telling us your story. Again,
thank you.
It's like an honor to have someone who survived sitting here, because you're the key to what happened that they can't tell us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
History doesn't wait. This is our moment to rise, unite, and reclaim our children's health.
Join us here in Austin, Texas this November at the Children's Health Defense Conference.
In the wake of unprecedented medical overreach and censorship, the world is waking up, and people like you are leading the way.
We're at a turning point in history. With the pandemic behind us, our fight for freedom and health has reached the global stage.
This is our moment of truth, and we're ready to seize it together.
And Children's Health Defense has been at the forefront of this charge. Our 2025 conference brings together the leaders, visionaries, and warriors who made it happen.
Meet the parents whose lives were forever changed, and hear from doctors who risked everything to speak out. Stand with those who refused to be silenced.
You are going to hear from world-renowned speakers, doctors, and frontline leaders driving the medical freedom movement.
Discover real-world solutions grounded in science, integrity, and human rights.
Join the discussion to talk about vaccines, informed consent, parental rights, and so much more.
And you'll, of course, hear from your favorite CHD personalities, sharing the latest on CHD's research, litigation, and outreach.
And while you're there, soak up the energy, culture, and music of beautiful Austin, Texas.
Whether you're a parent, a practitioner, or a medical freedom advocate, this is your call to action to protect what matters most.
Be part of the movement that is rewriting the story for generations to come.
So please join us.
Join us.
Join us. Let's make history together in Austin.